Hare Krishna, welcome all to Shubha Mangalarati and a short Bhagavatam class, the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita class. So, today we'll be talking about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, before I begin, I would like to offer my prayers. चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदामयि ददान्ति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं स्वजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिय वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So every day we are hearing about Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we'll try and hear what are the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam is unlimited. We've been daily hearing and how much we've seen how much nectar Srimad Bhagavatam contains. So beginning with how Lord incarnates in form of wood as Jagannath, and he comes down as in the form of stone, he comes down as Giriraj Govardhan, and in the form of sound he comes as the holy name of the Lord. So similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam is also the literary incarnation of the Lord. So when I was hearing it from His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he was telling that if all the Vedas and Upanishads that Veda Vyasa had compiled were destroyed at the time of annihilation, and if only Srimad Bhagavatam was left, it was sufficient for the soul to read Srimad Bhagavatam. That means Srimad Bhagavatam is sufficient. It can take the conditioned soul back home, back to Godhead. So that is how glorious Srimad Bhagavatam is. So we've all heard how Srimad Bhagavatam is Amala Puran. So it is a spotless literature, and Krishna himself is incarnated in form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the name, form, pastimes of Krishna are non-different from Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. So we there are two types of Bhagavatam. That is, one is the book Bhagavatam, and another is the person Bhagavatam. So the book Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna, and the book Bhagavatam is and the person Bhagavatam is the person who is leading his life, abiding the principles that's being mentioned in the book Bhagavatam. So it could be our the 12 Mahajans, our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj. All of them they come under the category of person Bhagavatam, because they are a living example as to how the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam can be applied in life, and how one can live by the principles that's being mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it would be sometimes difficult for us to understand certain verses that is being mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. So at that time, it is the person Bhagavatam who comes into the picture, and it is through their own life examples that they show what the verses that are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam are actually trying to convey to the what the verses are trying to convey to the conditioned souls. So it is said that it without the it is said that without the help of person Bhagavatam, it is impossible to understand book Bhagavatam. So as I mentioned, because a certain set of verses, it could be impossible, but when we look at the person Bhagavatam, it becomes easy for us to understand what are the verses that are the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam trying to communicate. So when we see as to how the Lord is being so merciful, and he's incarnated in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, so it becomes duty as Vaishnavas to read Srimad Bhagavatam on a regular basis. So Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, so daily reading of Srimad Bhagavatam becomes really important. And we've been discussing Srimad Bhagavatam during these Purushottam Mass. So how we can try and make the maximum benefit of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So Guru Maharaj, in his one of the Srimad Bhagavatam lectures that I was hearing, he tells that Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the Vedic tree. So all the Vedas and Upanishads, Guru Maharaj compares it to a tree, and the essence of the tree lies in its fruit. So Srimad Bhagavatam is that fruit. Guru Maharaj tells that it is not only a fruit, but it is a ripened and mature fruit. So we can see in the tree there are ripened and unripened fruits, but the ripened fruit or the mature fruit is only the fruit that is in a position to be consumed, or only that can be intaken. So Srimad Bhagavatam is also like the ripened fruit, since the essence of the trees lies in its fruit. Similarly, the essence of all the Vedas and Upanishads lies in Srimad Bhagavatam. We can see how Vedas always are also guiding. If we go into the Vedas and read them, if you want to get liberation, there is a particular yagna you have to perform, or you want to have a son, there is another sacrifice that is being prescribed. But at the end, they all come to a conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when we reach Srimad Bhagavatam, it has already been established in Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are his eternal servants, and our constitutional position is to serve Krishna life after life. So it is only Srimad Bhagavatam that reveals to the living entities that what is our constitutional position, and how we as living entities can serve Krishna, how we as his servitors can serve Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita is said to be the literature that is being spoken by Krishna, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the literature that is spoken about Krishna. And what it makes Srimad Bhagavatam even more special is that it is spoken about the devotees of Krishna. So we have always seen as to how the devotees are so merciful than the Lord. So it is always said that the devotees are even more merciful, and the live example of is our Guru Maharaj, how he is distributing his mercy to all the conditioned soul. So we can also see we've been discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, and we have seen how even liberated souls like Sukadev Goswami. So in the verses, Vedavyasa writes that the Atma Ramas like Sukadev Goswami, they are also interested in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can understand how glorious Srimad Bhagavatam is. If even liberated souls like Sukadev Goswami is showing their interest in such a literature, so it becomes our duty to understand how important Srimad Bhagavatam is and how glorious it is. So we can see how Vedavyasa, he was such a knowledgeable person. he had compiled the 4 Vedas and all the Upanishads. But even after compiling all of them, he was not satisfied. He was lamenting. And it is by the grace of his spiritual master, Narada Muni, that he came to know that what is the reason for his lamentation, and the only compilation that can make him satisfied and happy, and which can even help all the conditioned souls to reconnect with Krishna, was Srimad Bhagavatam. So it was only after he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam by the grace of his spiritual master, that is what made with Vyasadev happy and satisfied. So Srimad Bhagavatam is when I was hearing to one of the lectures, the speaker, a senior Vaishnava, he was comparing Srimad Bhagavatam to a cotton. So if you desire, the cotton can be made into a small ball. So it can be squeezed and made into tiny balls. And if one desires, the cotton can be stretched long and wide to the desired length. So Srimad Bhagavatam is also similar. So it is contained to a cotton. So if if the speaker desires that Srimad Bhagavatam has to be spoken and a particular verse has to be dealt within 1 hour, they can speak Srimad Bhagavatam for within 1 hour and complete the words. But if the desire of the Vaishnava is that he speaks on and on about Srimad Bhagavatam, then he can go on speaking. The cotton can be stretched long, or it can even be made into small balls. So our Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Prabhupada's spiritual master, he had spoken on the first verse of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam for 64 days. So it is said that he was such a great scholar that he could have spoken for the rest of his life on the same verse. So that is how nectarian the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam is. So Amarendra Prabhu gives a very nice analogy as to how Srimad Bhagavatam purifies oneself. Just by lending our ears to Srimad Bhagavatam, we can cleanse our hearts. So Cheto Darpana Marjanam has Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions in his Shishtastakam that the holy name of the Lord is the only means to cleanse all the dirt we've accumulated in our previous life. Even just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and lending our ears, when it is said hearing, it does not mean only lending our ears, but attentive hearing is what the Vaishnavas stress on. So it becomes very important that when we lend our ears for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we pay the utmost attention. So Amarendra Prabhu was giving example of Samudra Mantana Leela for hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when Samudra Mantana Leela had happened, so the first thing that came out of the milk ocean was poison, and that was consumed by Lord Shiva. And after that was when nectar came out, and Lord incarnated as Mohini, and he distributed the nectar. So similarly, when we start hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we shouldn't be expecting that the next day we are going to become great Vaishnavas. That is impossible, because even when Samudra Mantana Leela took place, it was the poison that came out first. So similarly, when we start hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, first all the previous reactions or the karmas that we would have accumulated, the sins we would have accumulated in the past life, it has to get cleansed. So all we get the reactions of all our previous karmas. So it could happen that we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and we are facing reversals in our life. So we shouldn't be stopping at that point of time. So when we keep on hearing and hearing, just as the churning of milk ocean kept on going, and the nectar came at the end, just by hearing and hearing, all the anarthas that would have accumulated, which is the poison, comes out, and slowly we start relishing the nectar. So that is how Amarendra Prabhu mentioned. So that should be the process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is also compared to a sun. In the verses of one of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that in this age of Kali, which is completely filled with darkness and ignorance, Srimad Bhagavatam rises as a sun, and it destroys it takes away all the darkness and ignorance that a living entity is going through, and it connects us back to our Supreme Father, that is Krishna. So Srimad in this age of Kali, the only means through which a living entity can always remember Krishna and never forget him is by continuous reading and continuous service to Srimad Bhagavatam. We can see as to how hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, not only just keeping Srimad Bhagavatam in our houses, but even hearing Srimad Bhagavatam has given immense benefits to many of the souls. So it could be the example of our Parikshit Maharaj, who is the listener of, it is because of whom we got the literature Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can see as to how when Parikshit Maharaj got noticed that he would be quitting his body within 7 days. So it is the senior Vaishnavas tell that he did not spend all the 7 days in deciding what should he be doing. So if we as materialistic persons, we would think that we'll enjoy all the luxuries that we wouldn't have got during our lifetimes, because in next 7 days I would be quitting the body. So as a materialistic person, I would be thinking like this. But Parikshit Maharaj was such an exalted devotee of the Lord, without even thinking for a moment, he gave up all his responsibility. There was nothing that Parikshit Maharaj did not have in his life. He had good wife, he had good kingdom, he was taking care of his kingdom very well, he had sons. So there was nothing that Parikshit Maharaj did not have, but he was such an exalted devotee. As soon as he got the notice of his death, he decided to renounce all of them and surrender at the lotus feet of Krishna. So all the 7 days, he decided that he wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and even before he could the bird could come and kill him because of the curse of Shringi. He had already because of just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, he was so purified that he quit his body even before the curse could even react on him. He had already left his body. So so Parikshit Maharaj is one of the examples as to how by attentive hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, one can attain the abode of the Supreme Lord. And another as to how Atma desire at the age of 50, he desired to have a son with his wife Dunduri, but his wife refuses to the proposal of Atmadev, and finally he goes to a sage, and because of the mercy of the sage, he gets some mango, and how Dunduri does not like to become pregnant and give birth to the child, because she is in the bodily concept that her beauty would no longer stay if she's giving birth to a baby, and how the cow eats the fruit given by Atmadev, and it gives birth to a human with the cows of here known as Gokarna, and how Dundukari was such a sinful person. So there, it is said that there is no sin that he hadn't performed. So he was not following the 4 regulative principles, that is meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling. So at the time, and when Dundukari left his body, because the prostitutes decided to kill Dundukari, and he left his body. Then Gokarna went to Gaya and he performed all the Shraddha ceremony. Even after performing Shraddha ceremony, Dundukari had accumulated so much of sin that even the Shraddha ceremony couldn't take out the sins that Dundukari had accumulated. So then he was in the form of he was in form of a ghost, and once he comes to Gokarna and he tells that I am not liberated because of all the past. Even after performance of your Shraddha ceremony, my sins are the sins that I have accumulated is so immense that even a Shraddha ceremony couldn't nullify it. So Gokarna goes to the sages and he asks, so what can be the relief? How can Dundukari be liberated? Because even since Shraddha ceremony is also not working out for him, and the sages tells that the only way that Dundukari can be liberated is by Bhagavata Shravana. So all the sages they gather, and Gokarna and all the other sages, they start reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and within 7 days, Dundukari gets liberated. So it would so happen that since Dundukari is in the form of a ghost, he would be tied to a bamboo stick with 7 ropes. So as the day passes by, so the first day is done, then the first knot is released, and the second day is done, the second knot that is being tied is released. Similarly, in the 7 days, all the 7 knots get released, and he gets the form of a Vishnu. The Vishnu Dutas come and they take him to the spiritual abode. So at this point of time, Gokarna is happy that Dundukari got liberated, but is also bewildered because there were thousands of people who gathered for this performance, and it was Gokarna himself who recites Srimad Bhagavatam for Dundukari. Then how is that Dundukari got liberated and not all of us? So the key was that attentive hearing of Dundukari. So he knew it was a do or die situation for Dundukari. So the only way that the Dundukari could get out was by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, because he was so frustrated with the ghostly body, and he never wanted to come back to this material world and go through the sufferings. So similarly, in the mode of similarly how Dundukari felt, even we as the conditioned souls, we also should lend our ears. We have to give attentive hearing. So just by attentive hearing, what Shraddha ceremony couldn't do, just by hearing of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, Dundukari got liberated. So I'll end it with another short pastime. So this I was hearing a very beautiful pastime. It was a very new pastime for me. So there was one of the Babas named Avada Baba. He was residing in one of the villages which happens to be visited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we've seen how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whichever place he visits, so he makes sure that the entire village is being given he is being given Krishna Prema, and how all of them become Vaishnavas. So similarly, where there was a Baba living, there was a Baba called Avada Baba, and he was living in this one village which happened to be visited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he, at his young age, and he renounced all his material activities, and on the order of his spiritual master, he started reading Srimad Bhagavatam on regular basis. So as the time passed by, he used to read all the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, and because of the continuous reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, he developed such love and attachment to Srimad Bhagavatam that he knew all the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam by heart. So any verse can be asked to him at any point of time. So he knew all of them. So he was so well versed in Srimad Bhagavatam. He had mastered it basically. So as the time passed by, his spiritual master left the body. So he went to the place where his spiritual master used to reside, and he constructed a small hut. And it is said that by the time he grew old, even at the time when he was an old person, he used to continuously read Srimad Bhagavatam, and he used to come out of his hut only twice in a year. So his continuous reading of Srimad Bhagavatam would go on, and he never used to discuss with anybody any of the mundane materialistic things, because he was so much involved in reading Srimad Bhagavatam that and he basically even didn't have disciples. He never even accepted disciples. But it so happened once that one person heard that if the Uchishta, that the remnants of a great devotee is being taken, then they would surely go back home, back to Godhead. So this person, he came to Avada Baba and to test whether if this really works. So he came to Avada Baba, and at the right time Avada Baba was having his prasadam, and he came and he was speaking to Avada Baba, but Avada Baba, and he happened to put his hand into the plate of Avada Baba, and the moment he did this, Avada Baba got like really angry, and he took the prasadam from his plate, and he put it inside the mouth of this person. And as soon as he put the prasadam, this person fainted, and and the people are daydreaming all this time. So here this person happens to reply that he just when this Baba put the prasadam into his mouth, just by intaking the uchishta of such a great personality, he got access to the spiritual world, and he could see how Avada Baba was there in the spiritual world serving Radha and Krishna. So, continuing with the same pastime, this disciple was very unsteady. So he was very chanchal. So he couldn't stay with Avada Baba for a long period of time, and he wanted to go out and explore. So he tells the same thing to Avada Baba, telling that I want to go out and see what else is there in this material world. So Baba tells him that he has to stay with him, and he has to read and recite Srimad Bhagavatam every day, and he doesn't give his approval. Even in spite of disapproving, this disciple, he goes against the orders of his spiritual master, and he goes out of the ashram. So looking at this, Avada Baba tells him that you're acting like a monkey. You're so chanchal. You just want to roam. How monkeys jump from one branch to other. Similarly, you also want to go out and visit all these materialistic places. So you're acting like a monkey, he tells. And in spite of all this, this disciple goes, and after a couple of days, it so happens that the disciple leaves his body. And one of the days when Avada Baba is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, a monkey happens to come, and as soon as Baba looks at the monkey, he is able to recognize it is the same monkey it is the same disciple who had gone out in spite of his disapproval. So he had come, and this monkey, Baba instructed the monkey, telling that he has to every day come, sit and hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was given a plate of prasadam after the recitation of all the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. At the end, the monkey was given a plate of prasadam. So this continued every day. The monkey used to come here, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the prasad was given to the monkey. And one day it so happened that the monkey left the body. And upon his leaving of the body, Baba instructed, telling that he has become a Vaishnava just because he had come every day and heard Srimad Bhagavatam and eaten Krishna Prasad. So he had become a pure devotee, and he should be given a sent off, as usually when the devotee leaves a body, how the Vaishnavas are sent off and how they're taken to the spiritual abode. So that kind of a ceremony was done to this monkey. So we can see that Srimad Bhagavatam is not only liberating conditioned human souls, but even animals are getting liberated by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So finally, we have to be thankful to Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, who has taken so much of trouble in compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam, giving us a word-to-word meaning, translation, purports. It would be impossible for us to understand these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam without the purports of Srila Prabhupada. So I was hearing how it was so difficult for Srila Prabhupada to translate all the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, because he at that time ISKCON was still at developing stage, and with the temple construction and all the other things, Prabhupada used to get up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. and sit and translate Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was hearing from one of the devotees, he was mentioning that as to how when Prabhupada left India, he had only first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he wanted to give out Krishna to everybody through Srimad Bhagavatam, but when he would go out for distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam, he would lose on the time of translating the other verses or compiling the other cantos. So Prabhupada had taken so much struggle. So if he doesn't go out and distribute the books, so he has no income for doing his seva. So with all the struggle that Srila Prabhupada has taken, we have to be grateful to Srila Prabhupada and all our acharyas who've given us such a literature like Srimad Bhagavatam, and try and churn the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam every day. So I stop hereby, and I thank Mathurapati Prabhu and Parabhakti Mataji for giving me this opportunity for my personal purification. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.